Alrighty, welcome in on the first ever episode of The Penalty. I'm your host, Trevor Cherney. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Very generous of you guys, but I appreciate it. But we got a show to do. We got an exciting show to have here. We're gonna get into so basically just the whole gist of this podcast is gonna be very heavy on Detroit sports. So that's Lions, Tigers, Pistons, Red Wings, things of that nature. So obviously it's gonna be very heavy more on, I would say, probably like Lions and Tigers. Obviously those are the two teams I really care about. But we'll talk about We'll talk about all the sports here locally here, and then we'll also talk about obviously what else happened in the NFL yesterday, and then we'll also we'll get into some of the top storylines in the NFL, whatnot, and then to wrap it up, we'll talk about the Detroit Tigers, and well, they had the biggest collapse I've seen ever from a playoff team, in the final stretch of the playoffs. That was horrendous. We'll get into that later in the show, though. Let's talk about Lions and Browns first, and kind of not really recap, but get my thoughts on the game. So they end up winning. I believe the score was like 35-10. I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe the score was like 35-10. Look, they took care of business. That's what you want to see, right? They won in convincing fashion, and they took care of business. And that's exactly what you want to see from a team like the Lions, who are still trying to show, oh hey, we're just as good as last year. If not, we're even better, right? Like, we're still top dog here in the NFC North. We still are one of the best teams in the NFL, period. So I really appreciate the fact that they went out there, they took care of business, and they won. Okay? Now look, guys, not every week is going to be a blowout, right? Now, of course, this game was a blowout, but don't expect this every single week, right? Because here's the thing. The margins of error to win in the NFL is so small, it's incredible. I mean, anything, literally anything, something goes wrong, and that could be the game. So you really have to appreciate the fact that you really have to appreciate the fact that these guys, look, even the Browns, who are quote unquote a bad team, they're closer to the Lions than most people think. But their offense is terrible. I mean, come on, they have 40-year-old Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback. Yeah, and he turns the ball over every single game. And it just, look, it comes to a point where, look, the Browns have a really good defense, but their offense is terrible. And if they have any semblance of an offense, they might have had a chance to win that game. But they don't. And look, the Lions defense honestly played really well as well. They got turnovers, they got stops. Besides the opening drive of the game where they allowed a touchdown, their defense played really, really well throughout the entire game. So you got to give their defense a lot of props. Joe Flacco had a pretty abysmal game, so there you go. But that's typical Joe Flacco, obviously. At this point in his career, the days of him winning the Super Bowl back in 2013 is long over, unfortunately for Joe Flacco. And just this is what Super Bowl teams do. They take care of business at home. No matter who is against, they take care of business at home. And look, you take care of business against teams that you're supposed to be, teams that you're favored to win against, right? We were favored to win against pretty heavily against the Browns. We take care of business. I haven't checked the spread for the Lions and Bengals game, but I can imagine that it's probably similar to what The Lions and Browns are. Maybe not quite as big, but probably. I mean, it's probably over 6.5. Either at 6.5 or a little over 6.5, if I had to guess. So yeah, but I'll definitely predict the spread for that game. And whatnot. So, but yeah, overall, there's not a whole lot to talk about with the game, but it was a good win for the Lions. And again, unlike Green Bay, you take care of business. You got out of there with a win. That's all that matters. Look, in the NFL, as long as you come out with a win, that's all that matters. Okay? You could be with the Packers and tie with the Cowboys, but that's either here or there. So, but yeah, overall, a good game for the Lions, and now they're on the Bengals. So that should be very interesting. Obviously, it's a banged up Bengals team. They're missing Joe Burrow, missing other couple players in defense. So I mean, yeah, but it should be interesting, and I'm looking forward to watch that game. Looking forward to watching the game and seeing how everything is. So, but yeah, so Lions and Browns. Overall thoughts: good game, good win for the Lions, and we're on to Cincy. That's basically how I would frame everything. That's how I put everything neatly wrapped up, basically like a Christmas present. Here you go. The Lions had a good game. There you go. Nothing more to say. Nothing else. Nothing more, nothing less. Just they had a good game, took care of business. That's all you can do in the NFL. I want to talk about some of the top storylines going on in the NFL that happened, or really just happened, or some of the big games that happened. Some of the teams I want to talk about, and some teams I have concern about. So yesterday, the Chargers and Giants played. And the Giants actually won. That's right. They won a game. It is possible, Giants fans, to win a game. Yes, it is. But now it's Russell Wilson. That's why it's so hilarious. The first game they win is without Russell Wilson. What a weirdo that guy is. All right. Anyways, but yeah, so the Giants won against the Chargers, which I would have never touched in my life. But, Justin Herbert might be in trouble because that offensive line is falling apart. So yesterday they lost their tackle, Joe Alt, and thankfully, as far as I can tell, it's nothing too serious, and that at worst he's out for like 4 to 6 weeks at worst. So it's nothing super long term. But if the Chargers, if they want to win their division, the AFC West, which has been ran by the Chiefs for years and years, the Chargers have to stay healthy. They have to. They already lost Rashawn Slater for the year. They're going to lose Joe Alt now for probably, let's call it 4 to 6 weeks. Maybe a little less. Hopefully, we'll see. That's best case scenario. Anything less than 4 weeks is great. But, obviously the Chargers have some big goals that they want to accomplish. And they have the personnel to do so. They have really good players on their team. And they have a really good coach who, yes, is maybe a cheating scumbag in Jim Harbaugh. But, look, guy can coach. He can coach for sure. So that's not a problem for him. So we know he can coach. We know what this team is. They're a really good team. And unfortunately, look, when you don't give any protection to Herbert, it falls apart. Okay? Herbert, like any other good quarterback, needs a good offensive line. And if he doesn't have that, the Chargers are not going to go very far. So, look, I mean, one loss isn't going to hurt you, obviously, but they got to be very careful. They got to watch out. They got to stay as healthy as possible, which is hard to do in the NFL, right? But they need to try and keep the offensive line healthy, because if they don't, it's all their goals are not. They're not going to accomplish any of their goals this season. So the Chargers have to be very careful about with their offensive line especially. Because, look, if you don't give Herbert any help, if you don't give Herbert any protection, it falls apart. And you saw that yesterday. A lot of pressures yesterday. It just fell apart. And just like any good quarterback, they still need good offensive line. Patrick Mahomes still needs good offensive line. Josh Allen needs good offensive line. Lamar Jackson, as you saw yesterday, needs a good offensive line. So that's it. Speaking of Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, they lost again. They are officially 1-3 on the season. They lost to the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. The Chiefs look more like vintage Chiefs. So my mentor will be very happy about that. He's a Chiefs fan. Shout out to my mentor. Look, it might be over for the Ravens. They're 1-3. Their defense looks terrible. Their offense can't catch up. There's nothing impressive about this current Ravens team. Their defense is struggling. They can't get 3 and outs. They can't get off the field. Their offense can't catch up for the life of them, and it's becoming a problem each and every week. Now we're starting to see the cracks fall for the Ravens, and they might be a bad team this year. Or at least bad for the Ravens standards, right? And the Ravens standard is very high, So, and that's the culture that they have built up with John Harbaugh as their head coach, is that they have gone away with, not gone away, but just there's been a standard ever since John Harbaugh has been the head coach there, right? The standard is, we're going to play great, physical, aggressive football and play smart, okay? And the Ravens are just not doing that, They look like a poorly coached team right now on offense and defense. Lamar Jackson, look, as good of a player as I think Lamar Jackson is, at the end of the day, he can't carry that team all the way to the top. Not in this current condition. He needs help. He has no defense. He's barely got an offensive line. He's got some weapons here or there, but that's about it. If I'm a Ravens fan, I'm officially at DEFCON 1. Like, things are falling apart. You're 1-3. Like, things are not going good. This is the start you didn't want to happen. You didn't want to be 1-3 of the season. Because I'll tell you this, being 1-3 is so hard to get out of in the NFL. It is so hard. When you dug yourself that much of a hole at week 3 already, or at week 4 already, and you're 1-3, that's not going to work out. So the Ravens just might be really bad this year, and that division could be now wide open for the Steelers to take, which would be hilarious because I don't think the Steelers are that good. I think their defense is just as bad as the Ravens, but that's neither here or there. I don't know who's got worse defense, the Steelers or Ravens. They're both awful. I have no idea. Let me see what these two teams look like after a few more weeks, and then I'll come back to you about that. So, anyways, yeah. But Ravens, they're in huge trouble. And look, for the Chiefs, it was a really great win. You wanted to see a win for the Chiefs like that, because there's concern there. They're like, well, the Chiefs, they start off 0-2. They may not be the same team, and yeah, I mean that still could be true, one not obviously, but they need this kind of win to show. Well, they're still the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is still there. They still got a really good defense. And look, when that offense is clicking, they're a really good team, okay? But the offense has to click, and the defense got to click as well. And sometimes it's hard to put that all together, right? Like, one side could be playing great and the other cannot, So it has to all come together. They have the coaching. They got the players. They can figure it out. It's the Chiefs. They've been there before. They've been to Super Bowls. They got the pedigree to sort of figure it out themselves. And if they don't, they don't. But hey, yesterday, if you're a Chiefs fan, great sign. Great sign. I would be ecstatic as a Chiefs fan. I'm like, yes, this is what we wanted to see. Yes, that's exactly what we want to see. Exactly wanted to see. God, I sound like a Stephen A. Smith right there. Okay, anyways. Let's see here. Let's see. Bucks and Lions. Or not Bucks and Lions. Bucks and Eagles. So that game was pretty interesting because the Bucks lost for the first time this year to the Eagles. Eagles are now 4-0, by the way, and look very dominant. I mean, yeah, and yeah, I mean, look, they don't have the most exciting offense in the world, but it works. It's an offense that works. It works with Jalen Hurts. That defense is still really good. They still have a really good front seven. I mean, look, they're going to be a tough opponent for anybody in the NFC or for anybody in the NFL for that reason alone. I mean, they're just a tough team. They're tough. They're physical. They're aggressive. And I got problems with Nick Sirianni. Look, I'm not a huge Nick Sirianni guy. Okay, I'll admit that. I think he's a bit of a tool sometimes, or and not just a tool, but somebody who is arrogant, somebody who is sort of brash and comes off that way. So I'm not a big Nick Sirianni guy, but there's no denying that he's a good coach, right? You don't go to 2 Super Bowls by accident, right? You have to put it all together as your coaching staff, as your front office, and it has, And look, Howie Roseman has become the best GM in football. There's no denying that. I would have not said that, 10 years ago, but sitting here now, I can firmly say that Howie Roseman is a really good GM. He's a great GM. He's probably the best in the NFL. So, but yeah, the Eagles, they look dominant. They look good. They took care of business against the Bucks. So, and look, the Bucks are also a really good team as well, who are coming this 3-0. So, but see, all the games they have won, though, was the last minute of each game. So, I don't know what to think of this Bucks team. If they're good, if they're great, if they're just good, and that's it. Like, I don't know. Baker's really good. I've always been a Baker guy. I loved him in college. And the thing I love about Baker is that he's a competitor. He wants to win. And I got to give him props to that. You know what? I will have no qualms about somebody who wants to win, somebody who is a competitor, and somebody who will do anything to do possible to win. It is absolutely. I love Baker. I love Baker. I do. He's and yeah, sure, he's had past issues and whatnot, but it just seems like ever since he's come to Tampa, he's really matured as a person, as a quarterback. And look, honestly, he's become you want my opinion? He's become a top 5 quarterback. Okay. At least top 10. I'll argue top 5 though. Some of the throws he makes, just some of the things he does. I mean, look, I think people underestimate how big his arm really is. He has a ginormous arm. I mean, he could throw that ball anywhere he wants to. So look, his talent's never been in question, right? It's always been his character. It's always been, what can he put his talent on the field? Can he be good in the NFL? And the answer is yes. The Bucks are a good team, but unfortunately, I think they're held back by Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is somebody who should have been gone a long time ago. I truly believe that he is holding that team back from a Super Bowl. That's what holding them back from truly competing in a Super Bowl is Todd Bowles. His style of coaching, his style of game management, it doesn't fit with a new style of the NFL, the new approach of the NFL, and what other teams are trying to do. Todd Bowles is very conservative. Todd Bowles will really, he won't disguise a lot of the defenses he's run, so he doesn't do a lot of disguising. Now, yeah, sure, he's had some great success with defenses in the past, obviously, right? That's why he's head coach of the Buccaneers, right? But even if you've been a past successful, great defensive coach, doesn't mean that you are still now. And I don't think he is now. I think he is, just he needs to go. He needs to leave Tampa and right off into the sunset. Because if they got somebody there, like honestly, if I were Tampa, I would have hired Liam Cohn last year as my head coach, and I would have fired Todd Bowles after that disgusting playoff loss against the Washington Commanders last year. I would have fired Todd Bowles. I would have replaced him with Liam Cohn. Why? Baker has really good pedigree, repertoire with Liam Cohn. They worked really well with each other last year. And now Liam Cohn is in Jacksonville. So, yeah, that's why I would have fired Bowles and hired Liam Cohn, because I like Liam Cohn. I do. I think he runs good offense. Is he a bit of a weirdo here and there? Sure. But, hey, look, if he wins games and if he coaches well, who do I care, right? I could care less. There's been a bunch of weirdos as head coaches, but ultimately, if you win, that's the only thing that matters. All right. Let's see here. Let's talk about, before we talk about the Tigers, really want to talk about that Packers and Cowboys game really quick. I mean, you tie with the Cowboys. I don't know what else to say. You tie with the Cowboys. The Cowboys, come on. That defense played awful yesterday. How do you allow Dak Prescott and that offense without CeeDee Lamb to score 40 points? Like, how? How does it happen? And then you tie with them. You don't even win the game. You tie with them. Like, okay, as long as you come out with a win, hey, it's a win is a win, right? It wasn't pretty, but we got out with the win. That's all that matters. You tied with them. You couldn't even win. You tied with them. Like, come on. I mean, I don't know what they think of the Packers. Like, with week one, I thought they were the best team in the NFC. Certainly, they were the most impressive team in week one in the NFC. So, but now you tie with the Cowboys. You lose to the Browns last week. You really had to win this game to show that you're still a top Super Bowl contender in the NFC. And they did it. They fell on their face, and they fell down a flight of stairs. This tie could hurt them in the end, okay? Because now, even if they win, if they have the same amount of wins as the Lions do, they lose that division. Even if they hold the tiebreaker, they still win that division. If they have the same exact wins because of that tie, Lions have a better chance of winning the division with the same number of games as the Green Bay Packers. So, yeah. This is what the Packers, this is what they didn't want to happen, was this. And I mean, look, it is just one game. And I know the Cowboys, look, I know their offense isn't horrible, right? But also, too, that Bears defense, which is also horrible as well, gashed that offense, gashed Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott couldn't do anything for the majority of that game. And it seemed like he'd do willy-nilly whatever he wanted to do against the Green Bay Packers. So I'm just more confused what the Packers are. Are they a great team? Are they still a good team? Like, I don't know. They might be really good, and they may not be great. Let's call it how it is. You don't lose the Browns if you're great. You don't tie with the Cowboys if you're great. You should put them away, okay? At least win by a touchdown or so, right? Even by 3 points. As long as you win, that's all that matters. You get out with a win, right? Like I said earlier, the NFL margins of error is so small. Just get out a win if you can. And they couldn't even do that. So, I mean, obviously, look, the season's far from over. They're still in a good spot. But, losing to the Browns last week, tying with the Cowboys this week, who, again, I'm not a fan of the Cowboys. I'm not a fan of that team. I don't think they're very good. Their defense is terrible. That might be the worst defensive unit I've seen in a while. Like, that looked worse than any Matt Patricia ran defense I've seen ever. I mean, just awful. And yeah, I mean, look, again, it's not over. I wouldn't panic quite yet. But Green Bay has to be very careful because they are now starting to have a reputation of not playing as well on the road as at home. So now if you're the Packers, you're looking at getting home field advantage for the entirety of the playoffs is now your number one priority. Because if you don't, you might be screwed. I'm just saying. You don't look right on the road so far. You just don't. You don't look quite. Something is wrong with this picture. And that's Green Bay on the road. That's what's wrong with the picture. So yeah. So they end up tying yesterday, 40-40. It's the second highest tied game in NFL history. And just on a side note too, I hate ties in the NFL. I hate ties. I wish. See, the objective is to always win the game, right? Like when you tie a game, at that point you just feel like, what did I do? Just waste my what? I waste what? Damn near 4 hours in a game, and they tie. Come on, that's the best they can do. Come on, no, go out there and win the game. But nobody wanted to win. So there we go. We have a tie now. Great. Thank you, Packers and Cowboys. I hope you both lose. I'm just joking. Oh, not really, but. Alrighty. So now let's transition to baseball. So, and talk about the Detroit Tigers. That's basically the entirety of September for the Detroit Tigers. Was that sound effect? They had a terrible end of the season. Had the biggest collapse I've ever seen a team have. I believe in the beginning of September, they had over an 8-point game in the division. And as it stands right now, with the season being over and now playoffs starting tomorrow, Tuesday, they lost the division to the Guardians by 1 game. Words can express just how frustrated and angry I have been with this team, and how disappointed I've been. How do you lose when you have a lead like that in your division? How do you end up losing that division? How does that happen? Like, either this team was never good and they just got flat out exposed in the entirety of the month of September, or everybody in the team just quit. I don't know what to explain. I don't know. It can't be anything other than either the entire team just quit or they got exposed for what they really are, which is kind of average at times, but also they tend to play down to their opponents quite a bit. Oh God. I mean, now I'm kind of rooting for them to lose in the playoffs. They're going to face the Guardians. Of course, it's going to be at Cleveland. They will have no home field advantage. They're the entirety of playoffs. I mean, look, anything can happen. Obviously, it's the Major League Baseball. It's the playoffs. You know, you can go on a magical run. Yes, you don't have to be a top 2 seed to go on a magical run, but it makes things harder, right? And especially when you don't have home field advantage at all, you know, especially for the wild card, it gets a little tough. So honestly, my opinion, I don't see this team coming out wild card week, the wild card series. My guess is that they'll probably win their first game, you know, with Skubal. They'll lose next 2, and that'll be their season. And if that's it, what a horrific way just to end the season. Horrific way to end it. Horrific way to just finish that way. It's just so. Words can and AJ Hinge is right. The words can describe just the incompetence of the Detroit Tigers through the entirety of the month of September. They played awful baseball. They lost their division. They had over an 8-point. They had over an 8-game lead in the division, and they screwed it up. They screwed it up. They did. You know? And it happens, admittedly. Well, not really, but I'm trying to make things positive here, but there's no positive way to spin it. We'll get more of the Tigers once they're officially out of the playoffs, whenever that is. We'll get more into what they need to do this offseason into fixing, into improving this team, because there's some work to be done. This is not a really good baseball team. They're just not. Unless proven otherwise, I don't see them making any splash to the playoffs. I don't see it happening. Maybe they do. We'll see. But it's just been really disappointing. You know, it's just been really disappointing seeing this team play the way they've been playing. So maybe they can get things going in playoffs, but I highly doubt it. Like I said, you know, they haven't played well against Cleveland at all, especially this last stretch of baseball. So my guess is that, like I said, they'll probably win the School Bowl start, and then they'll lose the next 2 games, and that'll be it. Would be my guess. So, and again, that just would be a terribly disappointing end to the season. But at that point, it is what it is. But we'll get back to you. We'll be back. We'll be back on Friday, so we'll see what happens there with the Tigers. So yeah. So, anyways, that is the show. That is the penalty. I'm your host, Trevor Cherney. We'll be back here. We'll have an episode up, hopefully by Friday. And that'll be a preview show previewing, Lions and Bengals. We'll talk about some other things as well. We'll talk about, us, the Tigers. And if they're already out of playoffs by that point, well, we'll talk about it, and we'll talk about their next steps and what they have to do in order to improve, and what the offseason looks like, and what needs to happen. So, yeah. Anyways, I appreciate you all. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And, yeah, I appreciate all of you guys. Have a good one. Take care.